Hello and welcome to EV Focus Now, and today we're going to talk about the three things to tell a first-time EV buyer, whether it's their friend or a family member. If you're an EV owner like myself and you run into one of those individuals who are looking to buy EV, they're obviously going to turn to you and ask you, hey, what do you think? Or you might want to tell them, hey, these are things you need to consider when you're buying an EV so you make the right purchase, you know, for their needs. So what are those three things? Number one, you want to ask that person, what is the purpose of the vehicle? And what I mean by that is, basically, is this a vehicle that you basically going to use to drive around the city, to work and back? You know, how big the vehicle, do you need it? Are you hauling anything, or just you and by yourself, or do you have a family of 4 or 5? All those things make a big difference when the purpose of the vehicle. Is the vehicle your only car, or is this where you might have to drive this car everywhere, not only in city but to other states if you're going on vacation or on a road trip? Or is it your second car where you don't necessarily need it for long distance travel, use it for city travel? All those things are very important when determining what EV to buy. Because some EVs, you may not need a big battery. You may need a 40 kilowatt battery that just gets around the city, you charge at home and it's fine. Or you may need a 60 or 75 kilowatt battery if you're planning on driving around the city but taking it on road trips, and you need something that gets at least 200 plus miles of range to make it to your next charging station with an adequate amount of charge left to feel confident about making it. So that's the first thing. What is the purpose of the vehicle? Number two, what is your budget? Budget matters, and as far as price, there's no point. You don't need to buy a performance Model Y $60,000+ car if your budget doesn't you know fit in that box. Maybe you have a budget of a $33,000 car, so that matters. So in that case, maybe your best option is a used Model 3 or a used Leaf or a used BMW i3. Those kind of cars may fit you better, or use Bolt even. I mean, right now Bolts you can get for almost $17,000, $15,000, almost with only maybe 30,000 miles on it. Great value. So price affects everything, and depending on what your budget is, that's another thing you want to keep in mind, because there are affordable EVs, and then there are really expensive EVs that have a lot of extra things that you may not need. So you don't need to buy those EVs if you don't need them. But of course, like I said, if you're a big fan of Tesla, there are affordable Teslas. Use Teslas on the model. Use Model S's. Are still very reliable, but there's plenty of Bolts out there, plenty of Nissan Leafs, and Kona EVs as well. So keep that in mind. So what is your budget? And the third thing you want to ask a first-time EV buyer is, what is your living situation? So do you live in an apartment? Or do you live in a house? And that makes a difference because it affects your charging availability. If you live in an apartment, there may not be a way to charge your car. There may some apartment complexes, as we go further and further into the year, into 2022, a lot of apartment complexes are adding charging station level 2s, which is fantastic. But if your apartment complex doesn't have it, then you're relying on the public network out there, and you may have to drive to a supercharger or drive to Electrify America or a level 2 at a gas station, sit there for a little while and charge. So that could affect your time, could affect the way you charge, when you charge. That's something key to keep in mind, versus having a home in which, hey, you know what? I can go with a much smaller battery. I can charge up every night to 100% or 80% and not have to worry about chasing that in the morning. Where if you live in an apartment, hey, you got to think about that. Do I need a bigger battery vehicle that will allow me to charge every 3 days versus a smaller battery that's more affordable car perhaps? But because it's a small battery, I have to charge every night, and then I have to go, if I'm in an apartment, go find a charging station, charge, and come back home if my apartment complex doesn't have a level 2. So that's something very that hits a lot of people out there. So if you live in a house, it's not much of an issue at all. It's no issue at all, because you're going to do 80 to 90% of your charging at home anyway. But if you do not live in a house, then it's definitely something you want to consider. If you live in an apartment, it does affect what kind of car you get and what kind of battery you get, because you may want a longer range so you don't have to charge as much. So those are the three things to keep in mind, and you want to tell first-time EV buyers out there, or if you're a first-time EV buyer listening to this episode, keep those three things in mind when you're shopping for electric vehicle. Anyway, leave your comments and suggestions below if you have some other thoughts on this. I would also like to say that please take a look at my Aptera referral link right here. Only $100 down to reserve a piece of the EV future with Aptera. Take a look on the website, see if something that you may be interested in. Is definitely the future on wheels for sure. Don't forget to like and subscribe, plus hit the notification button below to stay on top of all my new videos. And when it comes to EVs, continue to stay focused. Thank you.